Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me this evening. Saturday night on Talking Sip special show. Whatever Saturday night is a special show. Um, it's going on for the past year or so. Talking Sip. Um, the show specializes in different topics that is poignant. Topic of the week. It tends to be a roundup of what has happened over the week or so. Well, over the week or so, what has been happening in simply football. Yeah. But tonight the topic is what is crime? What is a crime plan? And World Cup. Talking Sip Saturday night. The Diaspora Rumbar concept where connections are made, ideas and current events discussed. Even people have met on this show, believe it or not, and got married. I think maybe we have to have a extra special. Sometimes we have the late one, a late one after. And one of the things that we have said is in the first hour and a half, we go on Instagram and YouTube. Sorry, YouTube and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook. And then the next hour, we go straight onto Instagram. But it all depends on how the persons overseas can actually manage that. Because Jamaica time is a different time, as you all know. And when I say a different time, because we're in the UK, and in the UK, the time is 10 o'clock now. In Jamaica, it's 5 o'clock. I'm bringing on a guest tonight, Mr. Dennis Chung, along with my resident guests, O'Neill, Lester, Vita, Jody, and other persons that may want to come onto the show. There's a link that people can come on the show as well, you know. And do feel free to like, share, don't dislike. If you dislike, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna get you. What's your name? Like Liam Neeson. I've got a special particular skills and I'll get you and I'll find you. You know? So yeah, let me just close this down. So yeah, so Dennis Chung tonight. Dennis Chung is a chartered accountant and general secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation. Dennis was in Qatar a while ago, and he made some very profound comparison with Jamaica. And but first of all, before I go any further, I completely forget the concept of tonight, which is talking sip, and you have to drink something. So as you can see, I'm going red and water, always red and water. You know? And if you are drinking something tonight, let me know what you're drinking. Here we are. Not that much. That is some red wine there. What are you drinking? It can be Crystal Punch. Crystal Punch, which is water. Always like something sparkling. Here we go. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers. Cheers to good health. Cheers to good wealth. Cheers to greatness. Cheers to good things in your life. Because you know what? Even though the Mayor of London is extending the ULEZ, even though nurses are planning to strike, I'm talking about the UK, even though public service unions are planning to strike, even though the postal service are planning to strike. But hey, what I can say without a doubt, try not to strike on your life. Cheers. Try to live a life which is filling, and satisfactory. I was in the park on Thursday. I was in the park, and while I was in the park on Thursday, it was very interesting just being in the park, just there sitting, and it dawned on me so very powerful that it is so important that persons are able to spend time with themselves no matter what. You have to spend time with yourself, you know? Spending time with yourself is so crucial, it is so powerful, and it set the stage, set the time of the day, you know? Are you ready? It's even by the way, I saw something the other day that Gaza, or what's his name? The Gaza, they said should not be in prison up to 2023. I don't know. But some Gaza in a prison, some Gaza is alive and outside of prison.
Oh,
Am I spot on? Was I spot on there?
you're very very much spot on.
So, oh, you're still Lionel Messi. I thought you're Gaza. Let me just bring in O'Neill. Balance the whole shit. O'Neill, how are you doing?
You can't only balance when he's supporting the left.
Which left is
I
that?
support the middle. Mr. Lionel Messi. I look him good. You see,
What?
we expect. Here's the thing: we expect Argentina to do well. When they get walloped, right? They had to come back and show that they're the great Argentina. But Brazil still is my team. So we'll see. Brazil stepped up and played, and guess what? They won their match. So we'll
I
see. The good thing is that Argentina is gonna go through to the knockout round.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's please send me that video. Let me post that video of in
I know.
Jamaicans who are in Brazil. I'm sure they're in Brazil. Most Jamaicans in Brazil there.
But Silburn, there's always been an affinity between Brazil and Jamaica because the great coach Renes Mois was the one that brought Jamaica to the 1998 World Cup.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
So I don't know how Mr. Lester jumped on the bandwagon of the Argentinian, but it's still the Brazilian are five World Cup. Yes, they have a drought for the last 20 years, but this is their year. This is their year.
Listen, I never know you that you're a wagonist. Thought you're a free thinker.
Look here, I've been supporting Argentina since 1982, sir.
Uh,
My
Oh,
first
you
World
support 82 when me is 57 year born.
Cup.
do you notice him shave completely? Unlike me,
No,
I didn't get to shave, so one can't say I got some. So I dye my beard, Anyway, Anil, how are you guys? How are you guys? How's the week so far? Well, the
the week
weekend
is
in that.
good. A
Mm.
good week of football, even though some people in the US we call it soccer, right? So there's always a great debate between football and soccer, but I go between both. I said football when I'm talking to the mates. I said soccer when I'm talking to folks here in the US. But it's been a good game so far. A lot of
Mm.
shockers. I think there's a lot of people who are taking or participating. Obviously, the big match between England and the US. The US was the better team in that match. If you look at the
Mm.
stat, England didn't show up at all. So we'll see. I
Well,
think. Go ahead.
well, no, I was glad for the match because I had to pick up my daughter from some performance thing, and I post that the best thing about England playing is that the roads are normally empty.
I saw you made that post. I saw you made the post. I saw you made that.
I mean, it took me so long to I was wondering how comes I reached so quick. I mean, the roads were so empty. It was fantastic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know,
So, but it's a,
but
it's a, it,
mm,
I think there's a lot of people watching to see what England, because England has not I think the last time England went into the quarterfinals was remind me, Leicester, was when they beat Cameroon in that game with Johnny Bonds back in the days. I think that was the last time they got into the quarterfinals. They haven't gone into the quarterfinals since. I think they've been knocked out at the round of 16.
They didn't go to the quarterfinals in South Africa?
Or maybe did they? That's what I'm saying. Someone need to check and see. Let me see.
I think South Africa was 2010. I think so. Not don't
Let me see. I'm gonna check right now. That's why we have Google.
Usually
Let's say the video I want is when they're running down some street or
yeah,
something
man.
like that.
Mega send it to you, man.
Yeah,
Have it
yeah,
right,
yeah.
have them right here, man. Don't worry yourself.
What you guys drinking?
Well, I'm drinking a non-alcoholic beverage.
Yeah. I've got some Red Stripe on ice in Ocherios from about 2015, the last time, or 2016, the last time I was in Jamaica. Andrew Allen is have it there on ice in Ocherios there, you know what I mean? Unless Lester went down there at the jerk center and drink it off. When he got on to Ocherios and claiming to be Ochiman. You know?
I was given my citizenship by the MP Marsha Smith.
You mean is that the money she used? She used the money from the consolidation fund to give you that
What?
thing?
The constituent fund.
Or the money is still there. Oh, the money is still there, isn't it? I'm just being
But
facetious.
that money is earmarked for projects between now and 2023.
Have you heard that one, O'Neill, whereby money is Lisa Anna and Marsha Smith top the MPs who are not spending the money for the people. Is
Oh
that
wow.
Lester?
No, but remember the financial year for the constituency development fund has not finished yet. So it ends in March. So they still have 4 months to spend the money.
Okay. I see. Well, listen. Well, tonight, I have Dennis Chung, who is going to come on later, and Dennis Chung was recently in Qatar. And I don't know if you saw the post that he made on his page in regards to his observation when he was in Qatar, because we're talking about crime plan and the crime plan in Jamaica. Everybody's talking about crime plan, and he made this observation, and what he said was, whenever the argument for an extension of the SOE comes up, there's always an argument against them, as seen here from JFJ, and we always hear it from the opposition. And he said, he said, when I raise the culture of places like Qatar and Singapore, some persons argue that they sacrifice freedom for their no crime achievements, and they're not democracies. But when I was in Qatar, I was able to walk freely without fearing what I was going to be robbed, or even worse, murdered. I didn't see any armed police. The service levels were impeccable. And importantly, everything was very efficient and on time. There was no verbal or physical confrontation on the roads. Driving on the road, I didn't see any taximen or even private cars trying to drive me off the road. I was able to move around efficiently on the public transport in a very orderly manner. Then I went to New York overnight, and immediately the noise level was way up with horns and sirens, crowds at security checks, and we're still orderly, but not as orderly as in Qatar. Service levels were still good and not as efficient. That's just a little synopsis from his page, you know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, O'Neill?
I think you're comparing apples and oranges.
Mm.
And as someone who have visited and lived in that area of the world, and you and I chatted about it a little bit. They have a different governance structure, right? And whether you want to, compare it with what we do in the Western world, you and I said it's a monarchy. They have monarchs. If you think about it, you look at they're part of the UAE system. Go back 50 years ago, you didn't really have a Qatar or Saudi Arabia, right? So they actually have borrowed from some of the monarchies around the world, and their countries are led by the royal family. Now, Qatar is a smaller form of Dubai, very rich in mineral resources. The U.S. has a base there, one of our CENTCOM bases there. Yes, there's crime not only in Qatar, in Dubai as well. But what we also have to understand is that they have a lot of resources, and you might not see that there's not, security services visible, but there's security
Mm.
services all around any one of these countries.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is their social net and their social services.
And Singapore too. And Singapore
Yeah,
also.
Singapore
Mm.
also, but Qatar, mainly like Singapore is a different form of governance,
Government, yeah, man. Yeah.
right? So they have built on resources. For example, if you're a Qatarian or you're Emirati or you're from Kuwait,
Yeah.
you automatically get a subsidy every month from the government. Every month you get that from the government. Housing subsidy, a college for university. So it's a total system. So just walking around Qatar and Dubai and then compare it, I think you're comparing apples and oranges without knowing the intricacy of
Mm.
what make these countries crime free. Because he's right. When I was in Dubai, I could walk at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, didn't have to worry about anything at all, right? And they have a judicial system that's totally different, right?
Mm.
Foreigners respect their system. So I think that, yeah, the crime rate is always low in those areas, but the crime rate is always also low in Barbados, right?
Yeah.
There's other places in the Caribbean would have lower crime rate than other places. So I think he's comparing, in my opinion, he's
Mm.
comparing apples and oranges.
Well,
Um,
what do you think about the fact that over the years, even like the state of emergency, which is not being supported by the People's National Party, and it's been used as a tool to sort out crime, but
uh,
somehow one get the feeling that there's a bankruptcy of the wills in the people that have the power to make things happen. They are not actually they're not resolved. They do not have the resolve to make it happen. When people sometimes we're talking about Singapore at the same level as Jamaica, and somehow they went off, and one is now at a certain level, and Jamaica is at this level still.
Um um it's very difficult to compare as what O'Neill said, like even Singapore,
Mm.
the culture of Singapore and the people of Singapore to the culture of Jamaica and Jamaican people.
Mm.
I think that the things that Lee Kuan Yew could get away in instilling or implemented in Singapore, it will be much more difficult to implement that in Jamaica. Not saying that it couldn't, but it'd be little bit more difficult. Also, Jamaica is very close to the United States. We
Yeah.
trade heavily with the United States and Canada and England. So the argument surrounding it and the reality surrounding it is a lot different. But we
Mm.
have to look at, we really have to look at what did the leadership do. So on a whole, the leadership of Singapore on a whole was agreeing with the path that Lee Kuan Yew was taking. You
Yeah.
know, in Jamaica, if Andrew Holness per se or Mark Golding become the prime minister, he said that he wants to go this direction. You're going to have the opposition as a and the media and as
Mm.
a huge blockage into that. So it's a whole different scenario. It has to be where most persons who are shaping the society have all hands on deck. But wait, with the Middle East, remember, we have to look at the history of these countries, right? So these laws that are in place there are not new. You know,
Mm.
they have had these type of regimes and laws for years upon years. I mean, in that region only, right? So these things are not new. But if when you look at Western world, we have more fluid laws, fluid society. So the cultures and the best practices changes a whole lot more than in these countries.
Mm.
the only thing I'll add to that, Lester, if you look at um, judicial historical, right, where some of the judicial philosophy comes from, is actually the Hammurabi Code that came out the the Middle East, right, came out places like Iraq and back then,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
and some of it has biblical, in the
Yeah.
Middle East, also the Quran is a central part of
Mm.
their governance structures. So I think if you look back at the comparison between Singapore and Jamaica, and there are folks that will say if you go back 1962 and you compare, Singapore had a lower GDP to Jamaica, right?
Mm.
But to Lester's point is that their government take a different decision. They said we have no resources and we're going to make this the shipping hub of the world,
Mm.
right? And somehow Lee Conway was able to set a vision and mobilize people and influence to sort of set that track. And I think he was prime minister for 30 something years, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And he set that vision, and that country is one of the richest countries in the world. And
Yeah.
they have certain system in place. When you go to Singapore, is one of the cleanest place. If you recall, a couple of years ago when the American went there and dropped some trash on the street, and they were gonna cane him, right? He got 3 or 4 canes because of that. So they have a system in place. Now, when
Yeah.
it comes to Jamaica and the state of emergency, there's a couple pieces of it. I think it was a band-aid to fix an issue,
Yeah.
a gang issue, right? But the interesting thing depends on the opposition, who you are. One will say yes, the others will say no. But it's a tool in the toolbox. And I think, Lester, you could correct me, this is probably the 5th or 6th year they've used the state of emergency. I looked at the stat before coming on. I think
Mm.
there's 1,306 murders to date, but 70% of those are gang related,
Yeah.
right? So the question around the gang issue is central to the state of emergency.
Yeah.
The issue I see with the state of emergency, yeah, you could say yes, let's have the state of emergency. But what are the mechanisms that are in place? I think the court said some of the processes were unconstitutional because you're holding people and you don't have any evidence and you're doing those things. I think the government could fix that. And I think this is where the opposition could work with the government to say,
Yeah.
if we're going to put a state of emergency in place as a temporary measure, what are the processes that we
Yeah.
ensure that we don't encroach on the rights of the Jamaican people, and then put that in place? Because I do believe you need it. I think the other part of it is the corruption that play a huge part of the state of emergency. I remember the last time, I think it was 2019 or 2018, I was in Jamaica and I was talking to an officer from the JDF, and they had just put one, I think it was Montego Bay. By the time the JDF came into Montego Bay, all
Mm.
the hardened criminals are gone. Now the question becomes,
How did
how
they
did
know?
they know that a SOE was going to be in place? So you play whack-a-mole, because guess what?
Mm.
I would say there are people in power that are tipping off these folks, right? And then you then say, well, they're going to
Mm.
move all their stuff, go wherever, Clarendon, go wherever, and you have the issue all over. If I
Yeah.
was the prime minister, I would declare literally across a Jamaica-wide state of emergency.
I mean the whole Jamaica.
The whole Jamaica, right? The entire Jamaica.
Lock
Because
it down like COVID.
yes, you're doing whack-a-mole.
Mm.
And the opposition leader is not gonna be part of the solution. Then they should put their bit out there and say, here's how we're gonna solve crime, regardless. And it goes back to what Lester said with the Singapore bit. There's no leadership. There's
Yeah.
lack of leadership and lack of will. Because when you have 70% of the crime that are gang related, according to the Glean and others, then focus on those areas.
Okay, let me just say, Michelle say hi. Hi, Michelle. Peace and balance. Well, to you. Corey Hyde is on the internet somewhere in the world. He sent a message. Say, hey, boss, I need to state my position on SOEs. I guess we'll ask each person to state their position on SOE.
Let
Listen, what?
Corey join. Let Corey join.
I sent
Uh,
him the link. I sent him the link already. Yeah.
okay. Um, it's a short-term measure, right? And in parts, it has worked. Like in recent times, over the last 2 weeks, we were averaging something like 46 or 49 murders per week, right? What has happened in the last 2 weeks? We only have recorded 12 murders over the period, right? There are some
Mm.
days that there were no murders at all in Jamaica. So when we look at where the seven state of emergencies are, the seven parishes, right? And then we are seeing that we have days that are gone that there's no murders. So this is, however small a victory it is still a victory because there was no active murders. Now, last night when it lifted, right? Spanish Town tear down. Two murders happened last night at Spanish Town. I was on the phone with one of my friends, and me hear when the gunshot them are something is our brother run come in and said them just kill a man. You know what happened over a period of time is when the soldiers are there or the police are there for projected period of time, and only you know this too. When you have military personnel or or police personnel in a residential area, they become friendly with everybody.
Mm.
So it becomes ineffective. You know what we need is the Zozo works better, but the Zozo is more expensive, as much as Samuda said recently. But what we really need is to have a real approach to it, a real social approach to it, a real welfare approach to it, a real tactical approach to it. Because we keep on throwing police at an issue that has that what we need is a, 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 a plan, a real authentic plan that to say, how are we going to get this person who is committing this domestic abuse to stop? you
Mm.
know, to have a different medium. But when we look at like if me in my yard and me threaten O'Neill next door, right? And O'Neill go to the police to report it. The police cannot do anything, you know, because the police are gonna say, where was Lester when Lester threatened you in my yard? Well, we can't do nothing about it. Me have to do it in a public space.
Mm.
So you say, but so what him kill me? Then we come arrest him. That is the answer, you know. Then we come arrest Lester. But O'Neill
Mm.
done dead already. Now, what happened after that now? O'Neill is the breadwinner of his family. So there's a domino effect that happened. Right? So O'Neill's son now say, boy, I'm gonna kill what Lester and kill me. And
Mm.
so it continues, you know, with the gangs, the MIT, the military intelligence unit of the JDF. Personally, I know this that they have serious evidence on the gang members,
Yeah.
serious information on who doing what. But what happened when it go up the chain? That is where the problem is.
Yes.
As O'Neill said, somebody political, right, is hampering what needs to be done.
All right. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Let me just bring in
I think
Chung. I'm gonna bring in Dennis Chung here.
I would say, Lester,
Hi,
it's a
Mr. Chung.
cycle.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
Mm.
If you go back to the 1980s, right, in Jamaica, you had the eradication squad, and the reason I know my dad was part of that group, and
Mm.
they were a force that was deployed across the U.S. mainly around drugs interdiction. Then you had different units that have been deployed since then. You had Adams, you had his units, and then you had some others. Right? So there's a cycle. So you're right that the SOE is temporary. However, the other pieces are not being developed. Right?
Mm.
So the reorganization of the Jamaica Defense Force needs to happen. The reorganization of the JCF needs to happen. One could debate that says, should we have merged the blue seam and the red seam in one? Because when
Mm.
I grew up, you had community police. You had a couple folks in the communities that were, I forgot, community constables are what they call them. Because you and I talk about the silver,
We still have them.
Let
right?
on it. Stick up in there. Let me just say welcome, Dennis Chung. How are you, Mr. Chung?
Man. Thanks. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Fantastic. Okay, you're in this international conversation now. I'm in somewhere in the world on the internet, UK.
Yes.
Leicester is in Netherlands supporting Argentina. I don't know what's going on there. O'Neill is in the States supporting America, the US. Then
Mr. Chung, it is the color of their uniform that I don't like in the Netherlands.
uh, uh, So, so Silver, is
Yeah.
that all of these things need to be put in place. So I go back to the
Mm,
constable, right? The constables were the eyes and ears of the police in the communities. They know who the bad guys were. Um, and somehow that changed. I don't know why.
mm,
But the other thing is how the JDS is established. And you and I, we walked through this on the show before, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Lester. If you go from Mandeville to Chapelton, right?
mm,
If you go Mandeville, you have a police there, you have Christiana, you have Spalding, you have Frankfield, you have Porus, you have Maypen. Now, if someone commit a crime in Spalding's, the next police station is Frankfield,
mm,
Yeah.
right? So to me, there has to be a whole government approach in putting not only SOE, but the reorganization of the JCF, putting back the community police in the community, right? And to your point, what are some of the social services that needs to also add to that whole process to solve it? Because the SOE won't solve it.
yeah. Well, Mr. Chung, Dennis.
Man.
Yeah, the reason why I grabbed you this morning was because I saw your article on your post
Hold
making a
on,
comparison.
Silver, there's someone I think spamming your new private
Well,
dating.
well, I saw it there. I was wondering if it was Lester. That's why I'm trying to
So
get
I'm
rid of it.
happily married, sir.
I'm trying to block these things. Yeah, sometimes they come on. Yeah, Sir Chung, if you just sort of elaborate on your point and also linking with the SOE as well, while I sort out this
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Well, the point I was trying to make, right? And I heard the thing about comparing apples with oranges, which I don't necessarily believe it. Um, because, you know, if you're at a state of apples and it's not the optimal state, then you want to get to oranges. And just like an
Mm,
organizational planning, you set your goals based on what you are not and what you want to achieve.
mm,
Um, so I was in Qatar, and a lot of people talk about the oppression and that sort of thing, and that we are a democracy, and we have to respect rights and freedom and all of that. But
mm,
the question that came to mind, I mean, I was there, walked about very freely. I mean, and just like in Cuba, I was in Cuba, and I'm sure that
mm,
people are watching you, and the security is there, but that's in the background. But what's important is what you see and what you interact with, right? So policemen were there, they had no guns, right? um, I had no fear that there was going to be someone attacking me on the street.
mm,
um, and it was peaceful. There was no noise pollution, you know. There was no illegal vending on the roads. No one was harassing you on the roads, and that is what you want to feel. I mean, we can all, if we all live in a matrix, that's fine, what
mm,
it is what we experience every day. That's important. So then I went further west to the United States, and immediately, as I said, you heard a lot of sirens, which is an indication that something is happening to somebody somewhere.
yeah.
Um, the noise levels were up, you know. And then you come to Jamaica, and as soon as you get on the road, someone trying to push off the roads, or someone is driving and they're on their cell phone and holding up traffic. Um, the potholes are killing you as you're driving in, right?
Mm,
You see the illegal vending on the road. You hear the noise blaring. There's garbage all over the place. And then the essence of my post was in answer to the question, or the person who said that, we are preserving our rights, right?
mm,
The most fundamental right that anybody has is
Right
right
to
to
life.
life.
To life. Yeah.
But in Jamaica, we have a problem with right to life
mm,
because we're killing up to 30 odd people per week, right?
Without
So
a civil war. Without
who,
a civil war.
without a civil war,
Yeah.
so
mm,
who has more freedom? The person living under the so-called oppressive state in Qatar, or the person living in Jamaica, where I have to lock up my house at nights, have security all around it, have dogs in it, and I have to have on burglar bars, right? The only people who live in freely are the criminals on the road, right? I can't go out and exercise early in the morning because there's a fear of someone holding me up. I can't walk properly on the roads, right? Because vendors are taking up the sidewalk, even at intersections, right? Illegal vending is allowed, right? I can't sleep peacefully because music is blaring all over the place. And then we say to ourselves that we are protecting the rights of people in Jamaica by allowing them to do anything that they want to do, right? So who has more rights? Who has more freedom, right? And that was the question I was asking. And therefore, when you look at it, I go back to Qatar again and even Singapore, right? You have a lot of people who are going there from so-called democracies as migrants to work. But I don't see anybody coming to Jamaica to work, the democracy, right? So people are leaving the so-called democracies to go there to work and earn money to send back to their family, right? They're allowed to leave at any time they want to. But no one is coming here. And then, someone said to me, like I heard just now, that, well, those places have resources. First of all, Singapore didn't have any resources, right? But Jamaica has a significant resource called tourism. But when I look at the hip strip, and everybody knows the hip strip in Montego Bay, right? Um, the hip strip is becoming a place where illegal vending take over. So the sidewalks are dirty, right? Prostitution is taking place there, right? So and then 500 meters down the line, you have downtown, which is total chaos, and you can be in the shops at any time, and criminals come in and start shoot up the place, right? And that is a significant resource because people come to Jamaica, and you go to Las Vegas, for example, and Las Vegas is a desert, right, which have made into this remarkable place. So if I were to, for example, just clean up the hip strip and get that one strip alone orderly, instead of charging 250 US a night, I could be charging 500 US a night or 600 US a night for a room, right? And that is resources, right, that we are wasting. So we are wasting our resources. What they have done is optimize their resources, right? A significant part of the resources that we're wasting also is our human resources. We're
Yeah.
killing our people. We have, for over 10 years, our parliament has not passed the Road Traffic Amendment Act, even though we're killing over 400 to 500 people per year on the road. And if you were to pass that act and even save 20% of the people, right, is 100 lives per year. But Parliament has not seen it fit to pass a road traffic act in over 10 years. Where I'm at the NSWMA, we issue 300 tickets per month for littering. But the average cost of the ticket is 2,000 Jamaican dollars. So it costs you more to comply with the proper way of disposing your garbage than to pay the ticket. And that legislation itself for the increased fines has been in place, has been in the bureaucracy for over 10 years again, right? So we ask ourselves who is free and who is not free, right? And what is the real issue? The real issue with Jamaica is not that is not police and how police organize, because as I always say, right, by the time the thing reaches to the police to solve it is too late. It means that the crime has been committed. Our focus needs to be on crime prevention. And in order for us to do that, we have to have a, um, a system, an environment,
Yeah.
right, where people do not want to commit crime, and that means public order on the roads, right? But we have ineffective municipal councils, we have ineffective laws, we have an ineffective parliament, right? So therefore, what we find ourselves at now is a place where we're focusing on state of emergencies and police because
Yeah.
we haven't done the job of preventing the crime. right? And that's the issue I have. And in
Yeah.
regard to the SOE, before you come in,
Yeah.
um, I think it is a temporary measure, and I've always said it's not sustainable, right? But the problem I have, right? The problem I have is not that it might be unconstitutional, but every time the SOE comes up, there's a big furor, and then the people who oppose it forget about it until it's raised again. And there's no empirical data to say, if you do it, this is what the
Yeah.
situation is. We have the empirical data that the SOE prevents murders. But then when people come up and say we oppose it, we oppose it, and it's a lot of emotional argument.
Mm.
So then what's the alternative? I'm going to tell a man that you can live in that house, but then I don't tell him where he can live. That's the problem that we face. And that's why I said Parliament has been
Yeah.
ineffective.
Can I get someone to thanks for that, and I'm gonna come back on some point, but let's O'Neill or Lester come in here.
I'll just talk a couple of things. So, I think the big difference, again, with resource and resource development is two different things, right? And I believe Qatar got independence from the UK in 1971. Someone could check that. But prior to that, they had developed the natural resources as oil, right? So they had the natural resources. They are a constitutional monarchy. They have elected members in Qatar. And as a result, that they have a monarchy that is very strong. And they have a different culture. They have a culture that is totally different than sort of what we call our Western culture, or just get local Jamaican culture. Yeah, they were a desert that grew. They're mostly the only people that own any weapons in Qatar is the military. So I think comparing Qatar and Jamaica is two different things, because the British did a really good job of developing their natural resources and made them rich. So they had resources to build out capacity to take care of their people. If you're a Qatari citizen right now, I believe you get X amount of dollars every month, right? That's incentive for you not to do certain things. Your
From the
kids
oil,
want to
from the
go to
oil,
college.
O'Neill, you have to give the public the context from the oil.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The oil they develop, that's the resources that they're using. So every member of the Qatar, if you're born there, you get all of that. There are issues that I have in not just Qatar. If I have depending on your passport, right? Do I call you Donnie or Mr. Chung? You tell me which one
No,
you call me.
Dennis. Yeah.
Dennis.
Yeah.
It depends on your passport. So I lived in Dubai. I've traveled that world a lot of times. You and I will be in Kuwait, and there's folks that don't look like us that they will pull out a line so you could get in line. I walk into the Kuwaiti airport, and they'll take me and put me all the way to the front of the line, even when you have 100 people. There are plane loads of folks from the Asian countries like India, Bangladesh. When they come off a plane, they put them in a corner and they can't move, right? So yes, they have security and they're a country that are evolving. But this is just my opinion, right? Comparing them and Jamaica is two different things, because they have the resources to do exactly what you just talked about, right? Making sure there's upward mobility. So if you're born in poverty, right, you have a mechanism to take care of your family. I do agree with you with the SOE, but all of this boils down to governance. Governance. You mentioned, Dennis, that the municipality are not mature. You mentioned that laws. You mentioned that the only time it seems the opposition has an issue with the SOE was when it comes up. So to me, it's a leadership problem across the board, because if you look at it according to stats, 70% of the people being killed in Jamaica are gang-related killings. So if that's the case, how do you fix those things, right? I was in Jamaica earlier this year, and I went to a particular part of Jamaica to go see my aunt, had the driver, and driving around, there are two old lady that stopped me and said, "Mister, leave the area. Them will watch you." Right. So I couldn't go see my aunt because of that. Right. And when I talk to my folks, they're like, "Look, the police know exactly what's going on." Right. So
Mm.
I think it boils down, Silver, you and I talk about this. It boils down to leadership. Do you have the courage to take the necessary steps
Mm.
to protect the Jamaican people? And if it means doing a Jamaica wide statement, SOE, to once and for all get rid of the elements that are causing the issue. But you also have to fix the other issues around
Yeah.
governance,
Now,
right?
Corey, thank you for coming on, Corey, internet resident. Mr. Chung, you mentioned a point earlier, the inept parliament, and we're going to come back on that bit there. And Onila just touched it a while ago, saying that the leadership and that leadership must come from the parliament working together in a strategic way. Corey, I just wanted to see if you can be heard. Hi, say hello, Corey. Just want to
Yeah,
test him.
greetings. Greetings, Silver.
Okay, where are you? Where are you in the world?
Yeah, man. You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Where are you in the
I
world?
think I'm on some I'm on some fiber optic line somewhere. Yeah, the fiber optic really working.
Supporting Brazil in the Qatar
Let's
support
talk.
Brazil.
Is it in the Pacific?
I'll put it this way. I was watching television Stone and Brit. And I mean, if Argentina did lose tonight, I mean, it would have been a disaster on the internet. So, I mean, I am well. I'm glad
Don't
that
worry,
you
they're gonna be a
gentlemen are
disaster. They're gonna
speaking
get
about
knocked out of
a
the
topic
round of
that
16. So
is
don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
look, I mean,
well,
even so, today wasn't the day. Today wasn't the day. You know,
mm,
today
Corey,
wasn't,
please don't pay
and
attention
trust
and
me.
feed into bad mind.
With,
Please don't feed into bad mind, Corey. Please.
I never get 2-1
all right, thank you
by
very
some
much.
no-name
Thank you very
team.
yeah.
much, Lester. All right,
Uh,
thank you for that.
let,
Thank
let,
you for that, Ballad.
let's say if you,
Following
let's
on
say if you
from what Dennis.
then it okay. Hold on. I got to play this for a second because is this Jamaica?
There's nothing coming across, just noise. Noise, there's nothing coming across.
We're not see it, Silver. We're not see it.
You know, I see it. Okay, don't
Don't
worry, you
worry.
didn't see that. Okay, let's go on.
But,
It
but, but,
was
but,
it.
but before, but after Corey,
I want you, I want you to go on to Mr. Chung. Yeah.
no. I want to say something about the specific celebration, but after Corey talk, make Corey talk.
Yeah.
Right. So just following on for what Dennis mentioned, and
Mm,
what really um let me hit that join button. He mentioned the hip strip in Montego Bay. It is overrun with the vending, and at that point, when he mentioned if there's intervention, wherever that intervention should come from, it it can lead to an ease in business. You can now sell a hotel room at 500 US versus 200, and that have me going. And I'm thinking that Jamaica still operate on a hustlers theory, and it seems as if that if you implement certain things, and if you're very strong-handed with a particular approach to bringing the country to some sort of semblance of order, those who are marginalized will rebel, and they think that you're
mm,
taking away their liberty to earn and support support families. Now, in a message that I sent to Silburn earlier, that we have to look at how persons are socialized in how they respect law and order, and how law and order itself is implemented. Going back to the principles, years ago, I remember district constables were the ones who had to come into your house, the search warrant. They're the ones who could come talk to that bad boy and say, behave yourself, man, because if you don't behave yourself, yeah, this is what going to happen. Sarge and Super, whoever going to come for you. Point of God to say, look, ease yourself. We hear say you're going with some madness. And,
Mm,
at some point, there's some resolution to that attitude, some adjustment behavior that probably in those days saved that so-called bad boy from the gallows.
mm,
Now, going back to my point that I make about the hustlers theory in Jamaica that is so strong. You stop a man food, there's gonna be some repercussions on that. Now, the, the thing about it is who 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 are the breadwinners and whose mouth. Tell me about the mouths that are being fed by this breadwinner. Whether it's by a source that is a clean source of income or a source that is foul of the law that requires some amount. I'm using this word strongly tonight, intervention, that requires
mm,
some law intervention to stop that food from reaching the mouth. Then how does society view that? Is it
mm.
allow the man making hustle, allow the woman make them go on, although the
Yeah.
behavior is contrary to public good? Now, we have to be very careful of how we talk about the short of the SOEs, right? And if there's not a united front that can, one, identify that there's an issue or something going
Mm,
awry in the country that the
yeah.
shortstop or the band-aid should fix, going by evidence. And as Dennis mentioned, that there's no empirical data to support that. But
Yeah.
guess what? There's a thing called the media, wide-eyed, right? And if the media reporting that there's 40 odd murders, 30 odd murders per week, and during the period of the SOEs, you're reporting 12, 9, whatever. And the moment that is lifted, there is something, there's this uproar again. What more do we need to say, all right, fine, the short stop until we have something sensible to first re-socialize our people, understand that we are sometimes our biggest enemies, and what we are jumping on the bandwagon for is not necessarily what will be best for us in the
Mm,
long term as it relates to investment
yeah.
and clearing cutting and clearing those
Mm.
woes that will lead to you now being able to earn in an orderly way. I hope
Thank you for that, Corey. Yeah.
I hope I positive
Mm,
enough that we can have a conversation around
yeah.
that.
Thank you for that, Corey. And one of the things with this topic, and as Anil alluded earlier, we have talked about this so many times. And I remember many years ago, I wrote an article. It got letter of the day in the Gleaner. It was the national security minister at that time was Peter Phillips, and the prime minister was PJ Patterson. And the article was called "Bankruptcy of the Whales, Fuel Crime." I was in the UK. Bankruptcy of the Whales, Fuel Crime. And what I picked up at that point was that there was not seeming a coordinated working together. And it comes back to the same point that Dennis says, an inept parliament. But before I go back to Dennis, Lester, that point about an inept parliament or the leadership not working together, because you have always said if they really want to deal with crime, they can deal with crime in 6 months.
Yeah, man. Crime can solve in Jamaica in 6 months, man. But listen to me. If if we're serious, right? If we're gonna have a discussion,
Mm,
we have to lay everything out on the table. If
mm,
the Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Michael Holness, is going to implement certain things, he would have to suspend elections. He would have to then take a more dictatorial role, because if he implements certain things and have free and fair elections, he might go lose because they might go vote him out, because Jamaicans, for the most part, and I'm talking the law-abiding citizens, the decent Jamaicans, on average every day break like 10 laws, and
mm,
just them day-to-day activity, right?
Mhm.
Them don't know say them broke the law, right? I can cite examples. The boss man when that drives up on the road. I don't know if Dennis saw that video,
Yeah.
right? He doesn't know that him a break the law. To him, are just vibes, right? The other motorists that is going behind him are in the oncoming traffic. They don't see it as anything. To them, I just them drunk or bus man there, right? Because they don't pick up them cell phone and make a call. And many persons think that if you make a call, nothing not gonna happen. You understand me? When the police arrest the man, you have passengers in the bus that he was just endangering them lives. I say, officer, that you lock up the man for? The mere talking to the police and interfering in the police operation is also breaking the law.
Mm.
You understand me? Jamaicans see littering as employment. If me not dash something on the ground, right? The garbage man not work, right? Yeah, boy, you go and your girl, where you look for bathroom for? Go piss in the corner. I didn't understand that I'm talking the law abiding citizens. So imagine what the criminal them are do,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
you have people who say, and my father ran an agency. Persons would say to me, "Me now work on a place if hustling not there." These persons are seeking gainful employment, you know. Me now work nowhere if hustling not there. So whole nature is about breaking the law. I would think say you have that are nothing. You understand me? Because we measure crime in waves, you know. So if me not kill somebody, you know, and a crime, you know,
So
right?
so somewhat it's a scamming mentality then.
It's just a lawless mental. But listen, I used to live in
Mm.
a West Kingston, and I've seen where 14-year-old, 13-year-old, 15-year-old girls are sexually active with older men, right? And the father find out maybe later, maybe number 6 man down the road. Him go to the police. You know what everybody just say? But other man do it too. Why you lock up him for? I'm talking women and other persons who are law abiding. I say, why you lock up him when 5 other man did do it too?
Yeah.
And nobody don't see that these things. So this is just a small aspect of it. But when we have what seem like a parliament or opposition or members of parliament who 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 seem to support lawlessness. Or if them shoot down something just to opposing sake, but them don't offer, as a Dennis said, an alternative say, hey, instead of you do this, let us implement this.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that. So so,
It,
so, so, so
yeah.
people are bankrupt of ideas to say, what
Yeah.
are we really supposed what last thing.
Yeah. Mm.
Dennis mentioned the hip strip, right? Dennis mentioned several things. You see, and Corey mentioned, the money might eat a food. So you got stop the money from eat a food. You have men on the street or women on the street who are involved in certain illicit activities and they're earning upwards of 60, 70, 80,000 a week. How would you then incorporate these persons who are undereducated, uneducated, right, into a formal system to earn 9,500 a week? how,
Mm.
how are you then going to ratify that to them to say, stop doing what you're doing, come over here so and
Yeah.
earn minimum wage?
All right. Okay. Thanks for that, Lester. And it's all pointing down to the same point there: the bankruptcy of the will fuel crimes, and therefore it seems like there's no coordinated approach to deal with this, whereby opposition oppose prime minister going forward with SOE. Some says a band-aid. Dennis, in a parliament, what do you see as a solution? Let's talk about solutions.
The solution, I think, is coming. I always say, and Silver, and that
Mm.
I posted. The solution to crime will come when people are ready, and I think the people are ready for it now. Just
Mm.
like how, and maybe I don't know what to say, but the solution to Trump came when the people were ready.
Mm.
That was when the solution came. So when the people are ready, and I think it's happening, because for example, people are saying now, the fact that most people are saying, listen, opposition support the SOE. All right, it shows that people are fed up. The fact that people are saying when the government moved against the squatters and the opposition was lambasting the government for it, people are saying, no, you're wrong, right? The polls that came out that Nationwide did show that people supported the government even though crime is going up, right? Because people are fed up, right? Hopefully, people are fed up enough so that we don't go the route of Haiti. And I don't know if you guys ever been to Haiti, but it's a frightening experience to be in Haiti, right? So I think the solution is coming, and shows like these, educating people in the diaspora, educating people has to play an integral role, right? Um, I happen to speak to people in the government, and I think that things are coming, right? The legislation, for example, in terms of the Firearms Act, right? Now there's been proposed a legislation that people who are caught with child pornography gets a minimum 15 to 20 years, right? I think it should be castration, right? Because if you're going to fool around children, you really don't have no right to have those facilities still. But I think when the people are ready, and I think the people are ready now, and we have to push with it. The challenge, I think, right now, right? And I mean, I speak with people in the police force, and I think the police force is doing what they can, right? Fitz Bailey, I think, is doing a tremendous job, right? The problem is the problem of law and order on the streets, right? And the authorities that has that responsibility is the municipal councils, right? So I'm watching the news the other day, and a new mayor came into office, and he said, "Listen, I'm going to promote the party people and this that because that's how they make their living, right?" What we have done as a country and politicians is that we have, and this is why I'm always against this thing about collective bargaining. We always cater to the lowest denominator, right? So we say a man has been paying his taxes on his land and somebody's squatting on it, and he comes back and says that I want my land and I've been going through court for the past year and I finally get an eviction notice, right? The politicians, and I've seen it on both sides, come and say, okay, listen, we will buy the land for the people who are squatting. We have done that so much that, as Lester correctly says, the standards of poverty has been institutionalized. By our actions, we have made everybody poor because we don't try and lift everybody up to a standard. We pull everybody down to a standard, right? And that's what we have done. And that responsibility lies not just with the government, but solely with Parliament. Parliament is the highest authority in the land, right? Parliament has the ability to get things done. I mean, listen to the debate on the SOE. So we're killing 30-something people per week, and it turns out to be a political debate. They don't both go in a room and sit down together and say, guys, let's iron this thing out. It's a political debate. And the people who I think who are most guilty sometimes are not even the politicians, but the supporters of political parties, right? And I can understand that mental slavery that people are in, that they say, boy, I will support a party until I die, no matter what they do. As far as I'm concerned, that is not living independently, right? So I think that we're getting there in terms of being ready. Programs like this, Silburn, is essential, right? The laws are going in place. We have to support them. We have to put the pressure on the politicians to push them through, right? I think that if a man litters illegally, he should face at least $500,000 or 3 years in prison. That is how we need to get the thing done. Because the more and more we go ahead with it, and the closer we get to the Haiti-like situation, right, it is going to take more and more stringent measures. And I close by saying, I don't know if you
Yeah.
guys ever been to Haiti. I went to Haiti for one night, and 3 armored cars have to come pick you up at the airport, and they have to drive at top speed, or else you'll be kidnapped. And when you get to the Marriott, which is a well established hotel in the middle of poverty, there are 2 or 3 persons with shotgun guarding the place. We don't want to get there. We're getting there fast,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
We're getting there
yeah.
fast.
Yeah, before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining. We was on the first hour with Mr. Dennis Chung, Chartered Accountant and General Secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation. Dennis, before you go, we want to touch on the football, but we monitor your time there. And also the topic is about what is the crime plan, and also we're good to hear your views for the guest and persons who are listening. What's your view on the state of emergency? What's your view on the crime solving in Jamaica
Yeah.
as well? Those on
Yeah.
Instagram, to see the full show, you have to go onto YouTube and Facebook. Thank you. Dennis, before I go any further, Dennis, how long do you have? 'Cause I want to touch it. I know people want to touch on the football. How long do you have with us?
Yeah, another 20 minutes
Okay,
or so.
good. Okay, fantastic. O'Neill, yes, please.
So there's a couple of thoughts, and I'm not going to repeat, but I do agree, principally, with what Dennis is talking about. But there's an area of Jamaica that we don't pay a lot of attention to.
Is that O'Neill cracking up, Lester? Can you hear O'Neill
No,
clearly?
that's not. Are you hearing me clear?
Yeah, man, you're breaking up, O'Neill.
Yeah, your feed. I think you get the feed from
Maybe
Brazil,
get
from the
closer to the
Amazon.
mic.
Feed from Brazil.
From the Amazon, so it not really work good, you know.
What
You
about
did
now?
something when he stood up. You did something
What
when you
about
stood up. You did something when you stood up, O'Neill. I think maybe
No,
something.
I just plugged in power. Hold on one.
It's so muffled, like.
All right. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
All right. Have Dennis. Have Dennis
Yeah, go
talk.
ahead, O'Neill.
No, go ahead, Dennis. Go ahead.
Yeah, while O'Neill is
Yeah, we'll come again on it. Yeah.
What I would
technical difficulties.
one thing I'll say, Silburn, is that
Yeah.
the only problem I have with Leicester is that he supports Argentina, which is really a nonsensical thing to do.
Yes. Yes.
And
I am.
Dennis need a red card.
I am wholly agreeing with that point you just made, Dennis. Don't know how you're Jamaican and support Argentina.
Yeah.
All right. So you
Very
guys hear me
clear.
now?
Very clear. You're very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think there's an area that we don't pay a lot of attention to, and that's local government. Local government, I don't believe is empowered as much as they should. Right? When you go into a lot of communities, you have local government representatives, but I don't think they get the resources to help the local folks. And I think that's an area that we should probe a little bit more, because if you go into, I'm going to use Spalding's, there's a member of parliament office, there's a local government office there. And typically a local government office will get, around Christmas time, they'll get some money to do road work, right? But I think it's an area, if you're matured enough and put resources there, they could touch the people in the local community a little bit more closer. Because traditional, and I know Lester, you're shaking your head, but I could tell you in where I'm from in Jamaica, the member of parliament currently who is there is not from that area. He's from Kingston, right? So for him to make an impact to that local community, you need that local representative, and it shouldn't matter which party. And I think that's the issue we're talking about, because we are so connected to party and we're not connected to making the right decision for the Jamaican people. Lester, you talk about the fact that if the prime minister continue certain policy, he would have to, forego calling an election. What that says is that every politician is doing things to get elected the next cycle. And somehow you have to get back to the leadership. You have to do the things that is right for the Jamaican people. And we have to figure out what that out is. We have a lot of great ideas that we talked about here, but we've been talking about these for 5 years or more. You know, we had the same, Dennis, we had the same discussion when the last SOE in 2019, and we're 2022 right now, right? So to me, your point around ineffective governance, I think it's there, right? It seems to me as, and it's not only in Jamaica, we've gotten so polarized. Let's not support something because Lester said it or because this person said it, right? Because to your point, Dennis, even on the SOE, when the opposition are talking about their opposition, they're not saying, here's our plan that we are put in place, regardless if they're in power or not. And I think
you're
that's
right
where
about that. You're not seeing a plan coming through, isn't it? On you,
yeah, we're not seeing a plan coming through. And that's why I go back to the local communities, because every criminal element have a community. They sleep somewhere, right? They're known entities. So if you start doing at the grassroots level and build it up, right? You have to build up the communities, right?
Yeah.
And how do we build the communities? To me, it's the local representative is some of the folks that we need to start looking to. And if we don't do that, then that's where we're going to continue this conversation, because I don't think I agree with the premise that's culturally this is how we are, the hustling mentality. You know, my grandmother used to work and sell at the market in Spaldings, used to sell a Coronation Market, right? So those people were hustlers, right? But guess what? They weren't law breakers. So we just have to start figuring out how we evolve as a society. You know, Dennis talked about Qatar. For us to get to Qatar, we have to start change our thinking, and leaders need to lead, right? Don't make decision because it's the most popular decision. Make the decision because it's the right decision for the Jamaican party. And if you lose the election, so be it. If we move 2 steps up the mountain because of the right policy and the other person come in and move 2 steps, we're better as a Jamaican society. So we need to stop the political infighting, because that's why we're here, is because we can't come together to look for solution and policy that impact the Jamaican people. There's too much politics. And until we fix that, we're going to keep the cycle and
going around.
And the Jamaican people are going to be the one that paying the price for it.
You know, when I saw that young man there who they suspended the gun from, when he held the gun at that lady there, whether it's right or wrong, the lady on cocaine, I'm not gonna say she's mad or whatever like that.
Yeah.
You know, no, the point about it is that I saw frustration in that guy's face at the same time. You know, maybe as he's gone because of crime, maybe he has been attacked, maybe something. I'm not agreeing with what he done or anything, but there's a frustration, and I think that is something which I sense, which is in the society. But I want Dennis to touch on football. Corey, give me 2 minutes before and let's and then we're going to on to Mr. Chung on football before he goes. Yeah.
Yeah, what you want me to talk about football? No, Silver.
No, Corey, no.
How can we not that World Cup?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Put you on the spot there, Dennis.
Corey, the more you talk about, the more you respond to O'Neill, and then after that we can go into football.
Corey, are you on the internet or where are you?
No, I think Dennis only have 20 minutes. So we should let Dennis go on.
Dennis have limited time, so best
All right.
Dennis talk about that, because
Dennis, you're in Qatar. Dennis, you're in Qatar. What was it like? And the vibes, yeah.
Boy, let me tell you, it was amazing. I mean, I went there for the FIFA summit, because people don't realize that when they say a football game, there's a whole lot of things that happen behind it, you know. And FIFA presented to us, because FIFA is a very big organization. A lot of money flows through it. And they presented to us what they want us to do globally for the next 4 years. Right? So FIFA controls football. all over. So, we had some great guys there. I mean, Infantino, the president, was there. You'd have seen the pictures I took with David Deans, who was the vice chairman of Arsenal that carried Wenger there. With Wenger
Wenger.
also, he was there.
Yes.
Yeah, Ronaldo from Brazil. So it was a very powerful group of guys, right? And there's a lot of organization that goes behind it. And I start with that to say that the World Cup itself, right? So Qatar spent about 200 billion US, I'm hearing, right? Because they built like a whole new city, right? I mean, they built hotels and all of that. Some amazing architecture. I myself stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, and I tell you, it was like a ghetto compared to some of the other hotels, right? But they did an amazing job of organizing everything. The logistics of it is tremendous. You're talking about they have 8 stadiums that they built, but on any one, yeah, that's David Dean's there. On any one match, the organization behind it, the number of people that are on the ground. That's the former U.S. coach, women's coach, who won 2 World Cups, and that's Arsene Wenger there. It's an amazing thing, right? There were some logistical things on the ground, but I mean, just think about moving around, because you'd have hundreds of delegates and VIPs from all over the world. Just think about even just moving around those people from a transportation point of view, right? So it was amazing. The electricity in the stadium, it was just an awesome experience. And what made the thing more amazing, which is what I wrote about, is that you felt free. It's like when you go to a match, for example, not just in Jamaica but the Caribbean, and the first thing is that someone trying to hustle something from you. You don't have that. Everything is organized. The security, the FIFA personnel are on the ground, just pointing you to where everything needs to be. I mean, just the whole experience of standing in line in an orderly way and going in, right? And people not trying to bore in front. That is what makes the experience, and if we want to get to that stage, I mean, this is one of the things we're learning, and we're talking about it at JFF. If we want to get to that stage, these are some of the things we need to put in place, right? We need to ensure that people feel free. It's crime free. I mean, and where we play our matches, for example, in Arnett Gardens, some tremendous matches. I went down there the other day, right? And people don't realize the potential we have, and they won't realize it because people don't feel safe going down there. So that's one of the first things we need to do. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, the whole thing, and the experience didn't start from when you get to the country. It starts from when you get on the airline that carry you. That's where it starts. Even coming back on Qatar Airways, they were streaming the matches live for the 13 hours we were on the plane.
Wow.
The whole thing on the Qatar Airlines was about World Cup, and it just gives you a lesson in how everything should be organized. A guy gave an example also that the way the police are there, he ran out of gas. A guy living in Qatar ran out of gas on the highway. Police went to him, got the gas for him, carried the gas back for him, and by the time he reached home, he had a $500 ticket on his phone. Right?
A $500 ticket.
Ticket, yeah, because he was preventing traffic from moving on the highway.
Okay.
But
at the same time, they sorted him out at the same time to get him going.
At the same time, they sorted him out. So it shows you a whole lot of efficiency. They had some problems in terms of some logistics one day with tickets. But I mean, you can excuse that. And FIFA was on there to sort them out. But it just shows you what it takes to host something internationally, right? So if we want to become that place, and we can, because I have no doubt, naturally, Jamaica, I think, is the most beautiful place on earth, right? But we're not utilizing it. You know, when you look at a place like Montego Bay, and even me as a Jamaican, I'm afraid to go out of the hotel in Montego Bay. Can you imagine how the tourists feel? You know, those are the
Yeah,
little things that we need to
yeah,
address.
yeah. And what's your vision for the football, as a general secretary for the Football Federation?
I think from what has been outlined, and it started from Sepp Blatter, I think. He was a lot more inclusive, right? But the future of football globally and in Jamaica, I think, with this new coach, especially we have, and how we're approaching certain things. And we have a very big thing coming up next year, everybody's going to hear about. But the future is tremendous. And you see it in the World Cup. I mean, 10 years ago, to hear that Saudi Arabia is beating Argentina, as bad as Argentina is, right? I mean, it would be unheard of. But all the teams now are becoming a lot more equal in terms of their ability because they're playing together. So, you know, a lot of the Saudis, they play in Europe. A lot of the Brazilians play in Europe. So these guys are playing against each other, know each other. And the football is developing because the coaches are moving around. So we have Hal Grimson, for example, who was the Iceland coach that carried them to the 2018 World Cup and also 2017 Euro finals, right? We had him up there watching a few matches also. So expect some great things from us, right? We have a lot of our players who are playing in Europe and a lot of them playing in the MLS, right? So the future of football is great. There's something that we're working with FIFA on right now, which is being led by Wenger. Is his primary role, called the Talent Development Scheme. They're searching for talent right throughout the world and putting funds behind it to develop it. They're putting a lot of funds behind developing women's football. And I mean, the last match we had, you must see the progress that the Jamaica team has made. I mean, from where we were in 2019, and I was very close to what happened in 2019 because the coach that actually coached them that went to World Cup is actually my cousin, right? Hugh Menzies. And he had come to me in 2018, 1 year before, and said, I have a set of girls that's going to the World Cup, right? Because we're approaching it a lot more scientifically now in saying that, and this is a program we're trying to put in place also. We're trying to tie the academics to the, right? So you reward people, not just for the football, but also the fact that you're juggling both the football and the academics and put the infrastructure in place. But the future of football, I think, is great. I mean, I saw something posted to say that when you talk about American football, they have a viewership of something like 100 million or something like that, right? The viewership of football, World Cup, is like 4 billion, right?
It's the most watched sport. It's the most watched sports in the world.
Yeah. So, you know, we look forward to the growth of football. We look forward also to Argentina dropping out soon, right?
Yep.
We know that's happening very,
you have to put that in. But then, Dennis, I have a question for you before you, because you talk about, I do agree, and there's a FIFA documentary. I would suggest people watch it.
Yeah, man. I saw it's on Netflix.
Yeah, on Netflix. And but you know, one of the things that I've always looked at, Jamaica went to the World Cup in '98. Right. And I thought there was a pipeline, there was a system. There's a lot of Jamaican footballers that play MLS now, right? But to me, Jamaica has this history of football because you have the Doncaster Cup, you have the Manning Cup, right? That has been a staple for it.
You have Pepsi, you have Coles, yeah.
Right, but those things have, and then you have the Premier League. Is it a resourcing issue why we're not seeing, you know, a more breakout of Jamaican footballers on the big scene, right? Because, you know, you look at, you could say you have some in MLS, but to me, the pipeline we have from high school, right? We have the Premier League there in Jamaica now. How can we make it, you know, where if you look at some of the African countries that have less resources than what we have, they seem to produce a lot of really talented players that play in EPL and other places.
Right.
What's the next step in maturing that whole process, that support, sort of that Jamaican football to take them to the next level?
Yeah, it's just management. I think the problem that we've had since '98 is management. The truth is that we haven't really as big a failure as a lot of people think, because a lot of people look at football success as when the men do well. But remember, we have actually qualified 2 women's teams consecutively, which is a historic achievement, right?
Fair point.
And we have a lot more people playing overseas, right? So we've progressed from that point of view. I think the last World Cup campaign we had probably the most talented team individually. But I just think that bringing it together, and this is why the new coach came in, that we missed that international experience, right? And I think that this new coach, the approach that he's making, I think the management, the things that are being put in place now, in terms of the talent development scheme, the focus on restructuring the league, which is being done now, that I think is going to make a world of a difference. So I am 80% saying in 2026 you're going to see us at World Cup.
One of the things, Dennis. One second, Dennis. There's a World Cup squad with Jamaican heritage. They're showing. Don't know if you saw that as well.
Yes,
Sean Johnson, Robert Sanchez, and all these. So Jamaica have a wide catchment of players. Is how you harness them, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Silburn, a Jamaican man is like a Chinese man. He sows his oats.
Yeah.
As long as they treat me like a Chinaman, Leicester.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi. Sorry, Leicester. Sorry.
Dennis.
Yeah.
I used to went to the prestigious Excelsior High School. You don't need to clap and applaud and bow down to me.
No. But what I said, what year did you leave?
94.
56.
I'm a relatively young man.
94.
Yeah.
Oh, you just left the other day. That's why you're not experienced enough to understand that you don't support Argentina.
There you go. I love it.
But Dennis, I thought O'Neal was going to go somewhere else with the whole money cup thing. Why is it that? And I have a notion, but I'm asking you as a Gen Sec, that schoolboy football is more entrenched in our society and more supported. You will see at a George's match or a KC match or a JC match, even the Dacosta Cup matches, you would see guys 50, 60, 70 years old. They come out. You see the sponsorship of these teams. You see money being put behind the Money Cup team. KC invested a lot. JC invested a lot. George's are one of the best pitches in the island. What is it that makes the support for schoolboy football more than the Premier League that we have?
It's not just football, remember, it's champs too, track and field.
Yeah.
So it's sports at the high school level. And I went to Jamaica College. So just to declare,
I apologize about that. I apologize.
We're winning Manning Cup for the 31st time next week, Friday, right? But it is the emotions. Because think about it, Lester. If you think about the best days you had in Jamaica, it was at high school.
Yeah.
That's where you made most of your friends, and just the
we had girls at our school. We had girls at our school, but continue.
Yeah, man. They were ours, but they were at yours. Yeah, but if you think about it, I've been going to Champs and Manning Cup from 1977, first farm, and that thing. Even XS had a great football tradition too. Think about being in stadium and winning Walker Cup or Manning Cup. That carries right through,
Yeah.
the Premier League is somewhat different. It's communities, and remember, a lot of these communities are already divided by crime.
Yeah.
So, same thing like that you get in the UK, where someone is hooked to a Manchester City or a
Or
Manchester
an NBA
United.
team. Or even in the US with the NBA teams or
Yeah,
the NFL teams where
yeah,
people are,
right.
yeah.
It's
Because
affinity.
there's a
You
lot
have
of
an affinity to
division.
a particular team.
There's a lot of division in those communities already. So we have to develop that. I mean, and it's all emotions. I think we'll get there, but it's going to take a little while. I mean, the truth is that our school, our high school sports serves us well. What we have to learn to do now is really, transform that
Yeah.
somehow. But
And
it serves us well.
well, thank you, Dennis, for tonight. And one more thing: the politics. There was a lot of politics which was going on in Qatar, though, at the same time with the LGBTQ, and and Johnny Barnes was actually saying something. Just keep politics
What do you think now?
out
Has it
of this.
changed your mind
Listen to
about
this for
what
a
we
moment.
might
Listen to this.
view Qatar and Qataris like?
I've also heard Boris Johnson call Muslim women letterboxes. So how are we viewed? That's what we have to think about. So, of course, this Qatari minister may have said what he said, but what the Qatar World Cup is doing, it's inviting everybody to come, but just be respectful of our culture, of our religion, and of our laws. They have relaxed a lot of the laws. Look at the drinking laws. You can drink, but the fact that you now can't drink in a stadium for 90 minutes, we're trying to beat them with a stick. As much as they've relaxed those drinking laws, can we not do without alcohol for 90 minutes?
It turns out you can drink if you're very rich and you're in a corporate hospitality box, but not if you're those Welsh fans who are out in their fan zone this
to be honest
morning.
with you, it's a bit similar when you go to a lot of the Premier League matches, whereby they can't afford to be drinking, but in the corporate boxes at some clubs they can. And secondly, you look at situations like, for example, the Crusader debate as to whether the outfits. And if you know that the way that Crusaders are viewed in that part of the world, it's very similar if somebody was going to come to a football match and wear a Nazi uniform.
Do you think, though, John, I mean, because the expectation, the hope is that by spreading football to all the different corners of the world, you grow the game. That's the reason they've got it there.
Yeah.
Do you think that people's attitude towards Qatar and the Middle East will change through the World Cup? Because what we have seen is the restrictions, not just from Qatar, but FIFA placing restrictions on whether you can wear the One Love armband.
Yeah.
FIFA have placed restrictions that the Qataris are only implementing. They're just very strict about implementing.
Yeah.
Do you think that is going to change people's perspective?
Football can't change people's perspective. Life changes your perspective. Is football changing perspective here because the players took a knee? No. You have to look at it from an institutional point of view, from a societal point of view, from a moral, intellectual point of view, from a colonial point of view in terms of what we believe and others believe. But I believe that if you go to somebody's country, we're saying the same thing for people who come here who may not believe in our laws or believe that they're right, they have to respect our laws while they're here. So if we don't want to respect their laws, do not go. If footballers don't feel or they feel they want to do something, be it an armband, be it outspoken and they're not allowed to, make a stand and say, I'm not going because I really believe in this. But they really don't.
Last comment.
I totally agree with Johnny Barnes, and Infantino said it also. He said, you're telling me that you can't do it without drinking beer for 3 hours. If you're going into a man's country, respect his laws. If someone is coming into your house, Silburn, I mean, you want him to respect your house.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is about football. We're going to play football, and the football was great. And that's what we need to focus on. And I've been there. I was on a subway one night because we decided that we wanted to experience a real thing, the Qatar. So we went out one night on a subway. The way the people from Wales were rivaling any Jamaicans blaring music. They were singing their hearts out. They were allowed to do that sort of thing, right? But if a man has a culture where he says, I don't want no alcohol, I respect it. We're going to play football, respect it. And that's why I see it. And I think that they did bend a lot of their own beliefs. So, we can cater to that too.
Dennis, before you go, Dennis, I currently live in the Netherlands for almost 10 years now, right?
I'm soon kick you out because I wear Argentinian colors.
I was inside my house. I was inside my house. Yeah, but Dennis, when I came here, I'm watching TV and sports from Jamaica from a TV point of view don't give you the real thing, and that's why I encourage people to travel. When I got here and I walk around my community, just my immediate community here, I can go to 5 football pitches, right? Each of them have a different turf. Now, when I see how the development, when I go to Germany, when I go to Belgium, when I go to France, when I go to these other countries, the same thing. Just the regular communities, the municipality make sure that the football and the tennis and whatever it is at high class. So if I want to play on a particular field, particular surface, right? I don't have to go to the stadium. There are regular community pitches here that I can play on astroturf. I can play like the sponge one. I play like grass. I can play on asphalt. I can play on like real grass, and I see that where it helps the development of the Dutch football also, and in Germany also. I'm thinking that we need to have the corporate, maybe a public-private partnership where we develop communities, centers, or pitches like that around where regular boys and girls can run up and down and play. So you get the professional feel, you get the feel of playing on particular surfaces. It helps from what I've seen.
Yeah, it does, and we're at, it actually helps with overall development, and I think we're that's something that we have on the radar to address, right? Of course, in Jamaica, money is always an issue, but we have a plan in place to deal with it and deal with it in a very targeted way. What I also said, Lester, is that if you look at the best footballers in the world, right? A lot of them played on concrete,
bare feet,
foot, and bad pitches.
Yep.
So there's something to be said
Yeah.
on the other hand also.
Yeah.
But we know that if you want overall football development, definitely. And with all the good pitches in the world, the Netherlands has never won World Cup.
But I don't support them. That's why I don't support them.
Why Dennis Chung, you shoot like you shoot some hardware and drop mic big time.
But O'Neill, we don't expect any more logical argument from someone who supports Argentina, right? So.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the greatest player in the world ever, Messi, he come from humble beginnings in playing football also.
Messi who?
Well, I don't think he's the greatest player in the world.
Invest ahead. You said logic, Dennis. You said logic.
Yeah,
logic.
Yeah, Pele, and for me, the greatest modern player for me was Ronaldinho.
Yeah, he was good. Good tactical. Yeah, he's a good
man.
And always smiling.
Yeah, man. He just didn't have the discipline to really become. But even with the short time he was there, he was very impactful. He was the one who made Barcelona.
Yeah, yes. Dennis, listen, I don't want to get in trouble in some respect. Yeah. Listen, thank you so much for coming on tonight and at such short notice. Man, and we're gonna have to follow this up because when we go to Jamaica, O'Neill, we have to do some riding with Dennis all over the country, isn't it? That's one of the
we have to do that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dennis Chung, the chartered accountant and General Secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation, giving us his views and perspective of the World Cup. Yeah, any last word, Dennis? On crime?
No,
tell the government to sort out.
The only last word I would say is Brazil.
Brazil. You hear that, Leicester? Take off that shirt there.
Oh, my man, I can't. Right. Oh, him can't hear. Something wrong with his wife. Dennis, thank you.
Well, he has a Brazil colored cap, on top of the Argentina jersey.
No, and a Brazil color. That's another color.
England color. No. Oh, hold on. I feel color that.
All right, guys. Later.
All right, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you, cheers. Thanks. Corey.
Him can't take the Argentina.
You're just on a telephone call to that beautiful island in Jamaica.
I thought you were calling to say Argentina.
I wouldn't mind my Argentinian brethren colleague. Just take it over and just forget about O'Neill. Just run with that topic. Run with
O'Neill?
My Argentinian friend.
No, hold on. I just want to play this video here because let's just send me this video. Let me just see if I can play.
Oh yes, I need to comment on that. Play.
Yeah, Jamaica. I not see nothing in Argentina that be a Brazil.
Corey, I just saw a bunch of unemployed persons, right?
Why you said?
Look at that.
Oh, they're children, Lester.
Yeah, I don't see one Argentina shirt.
They're disruptive. Oh my.
Yeah, it's called cheering for your team.
At that hour of the day, they should
okay, so that is Brazil. Okay. All right, that is the Brazil position.
It's not flowing.
It's not flowing.
It's not flowing. Silburn, it's not flowing.
You're not sure, Silburn. We weren't seeing it.
It's okay. I'll send you some towel when Argentina get kicked out of the next round.
For some reason that other one don't show properly. Yeah. Well, we can.
There's some Argentina people in there. That's why.
So O'Neil. So tell me now, wouldn't it be a good showpiece if Brazil and Argentina go to the final? Wouldn't you think?
It wouldn't be a good match. Yes, it would be a good showpiece, but then different league.
I see. These are the things that fear. This is what fear do to our friends. Fear. You understand me?
But I'd love to see them both, but
is it fear or peer?
Yeah. Different league.
Corey, I see Wayne Paul Ferran is in need of some education, sir. He's saying that inform your panelists that Brazil will win the next World Cup. He needs a bit of information. He needs a bit of education on the truth. He's brainwashed.
You see, the thing is this. I believe that some of these supporters, I mean, it's good measure that on any wagon you must have somebody lift up aside when the wheel them fall off. That sort of thing. So it is good. It's called creative lands. And Silburn knows it well because your castle almost made it to the finals the other day.
Yes. Can I just ask, what are you guys forecasting to win the World Cup?
Brazil and Argentina almost are gonna make it out of the round of 16.
Corey? Corey, you don't like to lay and you don't like to. What's your take, Corey?
I would really love for Argentina to lift this trophy, and I'm speaking from a point of hope. I'm on the hope side of the things. I'm a realist, Lester. You understand? I'm a realist. I really want them to win it. Met the great man Messi go out in style.
So somewhat you're being a bit sympathetic tonight because of company you're in.
Look, we have to be mindful of other people's feelings, when you're in a forum, a public forum like this. The world is listening to us, and I can't afford to crush O'Neil's enthusiasm about Brazil and the support that offers for Brazil.
I respect
one
Corey.
would think.
I respect Corey. Go ahead, Corey. Go ahead, Corey. You're a better man than O'Neil. Go ahead.
One will think that when one mounts their expectation or high hopes on individuals within a particular team, without the cohesion or the cohesive approach for said team to be at one or at peace with a tournament such as this one that is placed in Qatar, but is outside of their comfort zone. And here's a professional waffle around.
I was about to say something. You said waffle. You said the word waffle. My lord, like Chung would say, oh hum, waffle.
So the long and short, no matter when Neymar them do and how much goal them score in this round, it is not until that trophy come the end of the tournament. Blue and white, straight through.
As you said, hope is hope. You can hope sometime, but hope is not a strategy.
Well, if the Bible says, "Who against hope believe." The scripture, "Who against hope believe." When hope gone, you still believe, Leicester. Leicester believe.
See, Leicester don't believe because him wear Brazil color on him hard.
No. I'm wearing the supporting color of the Jamaica Labour Party, sir. You know, it is clear in this picture. The words are there, sir.
Is that? I thought that's Broga. That's not the Jamaica. Is that the Labour
No,
Party?
I thought it was Brazil. Just spell
Oh,
wrong.
it's B-R.
Sorry. We see dyslexia. At play here.
You see, I only see the BR. And so, you try to spell Brazil and can't spell it.
Yeah. Wayne Ferrance, I've been following Brazil from 9 years old. Many young footballers were taught the Brazilian skill by their coaches. This happened at Wolmer's Boys School. Only twice Argentina have won.
Is Wayne 12?
Eh?
Is Wayne? Is he a 12-year-old?
He's 12? No,
Yeah.
Wayne.
He has been supporting Brazil since he was 9 years old.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if he's like 12 or something, 14.
1978. You see,
No,
logic.
The logic's.
No, I don't know if it's a typo, I don't know if it's a typo in Met, I don't know.
Wayne, you have to come back on that, Wayne. But listen, guys, before we wrap up, unless I'm going to I'm shattered, about 10-day court hearing Monday. Listen, on a final note, what was person's views regarding the SOE? For it or against it or qualifying it?
The persons who are living in these communities, these 7 affected areas, want the SOE. They have vocally said that. It is the persons who live outside of these areas who are not affected by the crime who are opposing it. When we look in Central Kingston, that is a plague with murder. Central Kingston have not recorded a murder under the SOE, right? And it is good because of the war in communities and stuff like that, and the people were able to move freely, go to school. Persons were able to just have a period of time when there were no shootouts, there's no fear, and it's kind of sad that politicians who are heavily guarded and paid for by the taxpayers of Jamaica are playing a political football with the crime and are also saying that these people don't deserve to be protected. Because that's what the message it is saying to them, right? Yes, it is a short-term measure. Yes, it is. But what are parliamentarians saying to the persons who are saying, hey, when the police and soldier there, we're not dead. Police and soldier there, we can go a shop. We can keep a little party. We can go outside of the community and come in back. These are basic fundamental rights that many communities, right, are not experiencing when there's no SOE. Do we want a more permanent measure? Of course. For the meantime, this is what we have, and we need to be careful of the message that we are sending, right? Especially persons who live in the diaspora or persons who don't live inside these affected areas. Because when you move from 40 murders per week to 12 in 2 weeks, it says something that the measures, although they're not perfect, although they're not permanent, it helps save lives.
Well, well, I can say, and not to say myself for the last call, Corey had called me out. What's my perspective? I always say that if something works in some way, support it. If it is working in some way, support it. And instead of saying half empty, I'll say it's half full. So I support the SOE if that's the case.
I think Silborn Lester is right. Even if it's save one life, is one life save.
Yes.
Right. So if I was the prime minister, what I would do, because we all agree the temporary measure, lay out, go in front of the Jamaican people and tell them why the SOE is important.
Yeah.
Lay out his roadmap of all the things that he's going to put in place in addition to the SOE to keep Jamaican people safe. And I say to the opposition, if you are objecting to this because of politics, it's saving lives. And one life saved is life saved. It's a breadwinner.
Yes.
A father, it's a sister.
Yeah.
So get behind it, get behind closed door, work with the Prime Minister and figure out how you set out a roadmap to make the Jamaican people safe and move away from politics.
Because I believe Mark Golan said something. What he said was, "I'm willing to work with you," and blah blah blah. Well, I think everybody needs to really come together and work together and put out these plans. There were these sessions they used to have at Vale Royal. These bipartisan discussion. Those things need to be brought back, in some respect. Kure, on the internet.
Yeah. All right. There's
What's your
one
take on the SOE,
key agency. Right. There's one key agency that has not been brought in the whole conversation, or even if they're in the conversation, they're not as amplified because they are seen as the enemy, right, to the police force, and that agency is Indicom. Okay. So if you have Indicom,
what's Indicom? Sorry, what's Indicom?
The police watchdog.
Right. So they police the police. Okay.
Okay, got you.
They police the police. So if you have SOEs and they believe that liberties are being person's rights, I won't say liberties, we have to be very careful of that.
Yeah.
You're exploiting the citizens' right, the freedom, and it's restrictive, and you have stop my food and all of that, and the strong arm of detaining people without access to any defense, and it's a long lockup, these kind of things. I'm just using simple language now. That's where Indicom will sit to say, okay, for the human right element of it, and it's unconstitutional. This is an agency that the people can say, all right, and they are working for our social freedom then. And what the police are the soldiers doing, there's somebody with an extra eye. I'm not saying it's the right agency to be in the middle of this, but it should some amount of balance. If people are saying that the police, what they're doing is exploiting the people under the SOEs, and it is not right, and that's what the opposition is saying, then you have an agency that police the police for this to work. You understand me? So there's somebody that can hold you accountable for your actions and somewhat defend people's rights. Somewhat, the virtue of a report and bringing whatever is going on to the press. So the SOEs is a short stop, and as O'Neill rightly say, if it is one life saved, it's a life saved.
Yes.
And that's where I'm with today. That's the commonplace. Bring all agencies together. Everybody talk.
Yeah. It is very clear that based on the consensus from everyone on this program is that the SOE need to be supported. But another thing which I pick up as well is that it cannot just be the SOE coming in each time, but there must be something sustaining, isn't it? A high level of sustenance whereby the opposition leader, if he's listening, should be working in partnership, because governments should be saying in one voice at this time, just like in the UK with the high level of inflation. I'm so glad that we have moved away from the calling for election, calling for the removal of the present prime minister, because we're in this threshold now where we're trying to deal with this high cost of living, and Rishi Sunak is trying to do his best. And even though the opposition at times may say certain things, but he can sense there's a level of support in a way to get us out of this rut. And I believe Jamaica need to actually at this time somehow work together collectively, because as Lester say, one can deal with this in 6 months, but the bankruptcy of the will fuel crime. There must be a determination. And as what O'Neill said earlier, many great ideas have been put to people in Jamaica, but somehow is it that them involved? Anyway, we don't
But
talk.
bro, hold on. One last thing.
Yeah.
Just remember, O'Neill, you said something about local government earlier, right?
Hmm.
About the councils and the municipalities. I think you need to do a little bit more research on the funding that councils get now, right? It is way better. First time anybody used to get paid, right? Them get paid now, them get quarterly money, them get monthly money, they get they're the councillors right now have far more funding. If you look at annually, far more funding than what MPs get, and far more access to local government funding. So we see, hold on, we see more parochial roads are being fixed. We see more communities getting water, getting electricity and stuff like that, done by the municipality more. So councillors are doing a whole lot more on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis than what MPs are doing. You know, what is happening, what has happened over the years is that people over the years depend and say, boy, the MP for fix road, the MP for this. They don't understand there's a separation. So MPs are in charge of the main roads mostly, right? But the councillors have the bulk of the work to do within the communities and the constituencies them, because that's what they are local government representatives.
So Lester, my point was not to criticize, but say it's an era for us to explore and mature more.
And grow it.
Right, that's the point.
I understood what you mean.
Yeah.
I understood what you mean.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, Warren, it's a wrap.
Picking up,
Okay, guys.
picking up quickly on
yeah. Corey, you saying something?
Sibron, just quickly. You
Please,
mentioned
please,
that should give the locals the opportunity to lead, and that's where we have to be very careful as well. You know, O'Neill, that we have to do enough due diligence on our local leaders. You know, we have to do it. No longer you can just pick up some of influence and let them lead. Right? There's a lot.
So Corey, totally agree. No, I wasn't saying my overall point. So in the US, the local folks have more impact on my life than anybody else. So what I'm saying is to exploit that. You know, obviously you have to put the right people in place, but how do you exploit that and mature that, given those folks are in the community on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah,
institutionalize it. You have to institutionalize it. Training and all the other things.
Exactly.
And you know, vetting.
Yeah.
What you bring to the table. Yeah, man. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, talking about the local community, because even in my local community, I work very well with my local councillors. They're all Labour councillors and conservative, but we get along really well, you know. And I believe the local government plays a fundamental role. Guys, I don't want to keep you, but I'm going to finish off by just reading some of the comments as well. So anybody want to go, you can go, because it's 12 o'clock. You know, Leicester might get beaten. Lionel Messi, you know, internet resident O'Neill. But D Samuel said, well, we need a high school football World Cup so our youths have opportunities. Wayne says Brazil. There's a beautiful song say Brazil, ha 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 ha. Please inform Leicester that your panelists, I think he meant Leicester actually, Brazil will win World Cup 2022. Wayne was playing very diplomatic by saying panelists, but I think it was specific for Leicester. Years old, and he went further, Leicester, by saying he started first form in 1978. So work out that calculation, Leicester, with logics, okay? Sorry, I'm using O'Neill's word. I'm just using person's words right here. You know what I'm saying? Vita Gale said blah 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 blah. I actually punctuated by 2 more blah blahs. I don't know what she was referring to. I'll have to go back and
Leicester.
Listen. Wayne Paul France and many of us in the diaspora love Jamaica so much and stay connected with Yard. It really sounds scary listening to the crime report, depending on who you speak with. so many said it is not so bad. But Wayne said something after, and D, of course, said saving life is the most important thing, referring to the fact that the SOE, if it saved one life, as you guys said, it is worth it. But Wayne said something. Many of the locals here in Canada love the Jamaica experience. We need to share the positives of Jamaica more. That brings up to the point. I want, maybe this is leading on to next week, because we always find the show from this week lead to the topic in next week. The positives, because I did flag up something the other day, and that so many news which was coming out, which was on the headlines, were all negative stuff. It was just so blatant in our face, and yet we know that there are so many positive things in Jamaica. So maybe we have to put a little slot in, like get some positive stuff can come true, you know.
But
next
still,
week.
bro, I'm sure Wayne, O'Neill, you, I, Corey, we're all guilty of that. We see something like a eight vehicle collision, right? We click on it. You understand me? I have shared on my page where this young lady from West Kingston, that her mother is a crab vendor, she sells crabs for a living, right? And she just graduated from university with honors. You know, I have shared a lot of positive things, not just political things, but positive things about Jamaican, but it don't get the traction that a gory or a bad news will get. It was a reality of how we're made up as humans.
Yes.
Something seems that it is juicy or exciting or mix up or whatever. We tend to want to click to it. This is the algorithm of the modern era now, where sensationalism wins. You know, so I mean, Wayne, the good thing about Jamaica, I'm speaking to Wayne now. People who want to see and know and be informed about the good things of Jamaica, they know how to get this information. It's not hidden. It's there. It's not hidden.
So to that point, Selborne, I'm going to highlight someone, good music coming out of Jamaica. Go to YouTube or whoever you listen to Up There by Izzy and Conscience, big tune that just came out. It's a Yardman, Grammy-winning producer, first solo vocal. So go check him out. It's called Up There.
Okay.
Izzy Beats.
And also the Grammy Award, the Grammy nominees, all got some good list of persons as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody said positive, uplifting stories aren't as sensational and requires the viewer, to have a more righteous mindset and spiritual countenance. Folks have to actually think to be more positive, and negative is very easy to spread because it's based upon our temporal senses, which only seek to appease. The enemy has a field day with this, you know.
With the music thing, Silver, quickly.
Yeah.
Coffee, the Grammy-winning artist from Jamaica, Coffee. She has this magnificent album coming out. She has this magnificent career going. She's going to tour with some major players coming December into next year. Coffee is doing wonderful things. Protege is also doing wonderful work. Ziggy I think it's Stevie Marley's son, I think, right, is also doing some wonderful work. So we have some very positive messages coming out. If you look at the music that is on the top from Jamaica, it's always the positive music.
That's it, Lester. That's it.
Yeah.
O'Neill, don't dance, O'Neill. Don't dance. Please, O'Neill, don't dance. Jesus, no. O'Neill, you live up. This is white on white chicks. O'Neill, have some rhythm, O'Neill.
It's like white man can't dance. He could play. Wait. Are you trying to say O'Neill could write his face as a white dance? White man can't dance.
Some rhythm, O'Neill, man. Come on, man. You know, you see the rhythm of Messi. How beautiful it was today. Come on, man.
I know you understand that.
Come on, man.
All right, guys. Well, listen. On that note, have a good night. Yeah. Cheers, O'Neill.
Cheers.
Mike Messi is gone. Corey on the resident, on the interresident. Blessing.
Yeah, man,
Respect.
blessing.
All right. Cool.
Let's start a show with you. All right, cool.
All right. Cheers. Yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight. We don't want to go on too long. Good show, very positive and uplifting discussions. And thanks so much for Dennis Chung for joining tonight. chartered accountant, and also one of the key persons who was at the recent, well, at the football in Qatar, is the General Secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation, O'Neill Cross in the States, Leicester in Dutch, and Korea, of course, is on the internet. Definitely. And thanks for all the persons who came on. Wayne, thank you for moving over from internet, from Instagram over onto we call it YouTube. And for everybody, D, Vita, blah 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 blah. You need to explain what is that blah 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 about. Michelle, of course, light speaker, and everyone else for joining. Have a good night, and God bless you, and peace out. See you around next time. Catch you tonight live on Talk and Safe. Boom.